this evening we'll be talking about alumni chapters, focusing on events, member participation. So why does all of this matter? We show this slide at all of our presentations, and in the context of alumni chapters, as with collegiate chapters, this doesn't change. So this is the Tau Beta Pi cycle of life, right? Image, membership, leadership activities, and that cycle keeps growing. So if you can promote your image and your brand, that's really one of the things we're going to be focusing on this evening, then you can gain members, gain traction, get good leadership, put on good activities, and it goes back to the beginning. Right? So one of the points we want to emphasize is on funneling your efforts. So it's important to determine the mission statement that is appropriate for your chapter. So this is something that you have to sort of gauge based on your demographic, your geography, and the makeup of your chapter itself, right? So you can ask questions actively like, what do your officers enjoy? What is pertinent for the region? So we saw the Milwaukee Alumni Chapter taking advantage of local products in the area, right? And what has been successful in the past, and build on those entities, right? So you really want to build strength on strength, as it says on the side here, and pick a few good contenders for events, try those out, request feedback and surveys, and then pivot. And if something doesn't work, that's okay. It's fine to fail early on in the process so that you can revise your process and get it good for your chapter. So this is really what we are deeming funneling your effort and finding things that work for your chapter based on what your officers enjoy and what people give good feedback on after the fact. And then, of course, at the end, you want to revisit your mission statement to see if you're on track with the goals you set out. So here's some general ideas for events. A lot of the next few slides will be a bit wordy, so I won't read all of it, but some key points here: interaction and networking. Like I said, don't be afraid to try new things, expanding on the variety of events that you have, trying to figure out a frequency that works for you. As Miss Frizzle used to say, take chances, make mistakes, get messy, do what you do best, and rinse and repeat, right? And one thing you could take advantage of is collaborating with collegiate chapters in the area. More specific ideas for events, getting away from general connotations here. Some technical focused things you could do, or that other alumni chapters have done in the past, is tour water authority, breweries, stadiums. I think also the Milwaukee Alumni Chapter went to the Fiserv Forum and got a tour of that. Guest speakers, inviting people for career-based events. And then the more social focus aspects, you'll see some pictures here of enjoying some pizzas on Pi Day for the Great Smoky Mountains Alumni Chapter, and curling that the Southeastern Michigan Alumni Chapter participated in. You can also take advantage of local restaurants as a group, something that happened a lot this past Pi Day. I saw some good pictures of that stuff. More specific ideas and more categorical emphasis on community and students. So visiting local museums, volunteering, homeless shelters, fundraising, doing things for and with the community. Then student focus aspects, as I mentioned before, doing some career-based events, alumni panels, professional development, things that the students can really gather some interest and some thoughts going forward in their careers and trying to figure out what career paths they want to go down. Assisting collegiate chapters with volunteering, participating in local STEM activities, science fairs, science Olympiads. These are all really good baseline ideas that you could take for your chapter. And again, point we want to emphasize is interacting with students. So you can find the local chapters in your area at the link here, or contact your district directors, also at the link here, which will both be clickable when you get the slides. To sort of facilitate these relationships and then maintain them, and hope that you can come back to the local chapters, and it could be mutually beneficial for everyone. So it'd be nice to like reach out to the chapter officers with specific events, specific ideas that how you can help and support them, and build those relationships with the officer base, the dean, and make the connections between the collegiate and alumni chapter for prosperity. So here's an example in a graphic of the San Francisco Bay Alumni Chapter doing mock interviews with industry professionals, which has a career mindset to it. And then in terms of recruiting local alumni, which is a target for all alumni chapters, you could go through Tricia to get an updated alumni list for your area. Talk to officers, recent graduates. They're going to be prime candidates for alumni in your area if they're staying, or for another alumni chapter if they're moving on to grad school or industry job or other job elsewhere. And then put posters up in your workplace, even with your contact information, to promote Tau Beta Pi, get your brand and your image across. Use social media platforms for visibility purposes. I think a lot of chapters have Facebook and LinkedIn presence, which is really nice to see. And it's also available on the Tau Beta Pi website. Get some articles out, publish in the Bent, and even advertise to younger recruits, so to speak, people that will imminently become alumni and in your area and could benefit from joining your chapter. And then chapter communication is key. Talking to your member base. Recommend using an email service like MailChimp to send email blasts with updates, newsletters, current happenings, elections, or voting for the next term, what have you. You can ask Director of Alumni Affairs, Tricia Gomolinsky, to help advertise, have some check-ins with members, make sure people are engaged, make sure that, going back to one of the first slides I presented, make sure that people want to attend the events that you're putting on, and sort of get a pulse for what works for your chapter. Right. All right, so here's some good resources to have on hand for now and for the future. I'm not going to go through all these links, but you'll have these in your inbox in the coming days. And some more mission statement relevant resources. So here's a word map presentation. What would you like to take away from alumni chapter? This is doing these Menti meters or chatters are great ways to get a gauge on what people want to do, and it's a good way to publicize events.
Well, I guess if I have to pick one thing, it would still be the initiations. We've managed to come out of the pandemic well enough that here in advance that our local student chapter initiations and our alumni attending those is probably the most successful. Otherwise, I will say though, it's been interesting to see how successful some of our online events have been, but still people like to get together in person, I think.
Kind of split between two events because I think they're each successful for very, very different reasons. So I'll piggyback kind of on what Kurt said. I think our single most successful event was Tau Beta Pi Trivia on Pi Day, which we hosted virtually. We actually offered a $25 Amazon gift card to the winner. And I basically asked the whole chapter, hey, submit a few questions about whatever field of engineering you're in. And I'll blindly pick them and put them in the slides, and pick no more than a couple of questions from any one person, so it's not biased if they still want to participate, and then just opened up the floor. And it was a lot of fun. We spent over an hour playing around with that. And I think that was good for just building community within the chapter. The other event I want to talk about is jumping on board with a student chapter that does a fun run every year. around that same time of year for Pi Day, and we got involved with the student chapter, and that was successful because it got us interfacing with students. Helped plan it, helped recruit for it, and ended up getting participants, not necessarily who all drove to the town where it was in, where the Front Range Alumni Chapter spans most of Colorado up into Wyoming. But just getting people to run remotely from wherever they were, a virtual run. So 2 successful events for 2 very different reasons.
So our most successful events in the Milwaukee area are our tours, and probably our most successful in the last year was the one you mentioned, which was the tour of the Pfizer Forum, which is the home of the Milwaukee Bucks and our Wisconsin Beta Marquette Golden Eagles. So that drew a bunch of people, and yeah, so that's probably the most successful this year.
Well, I think for us, the demographic I'm dealing with here when it comes to alumni are generally like very senior. If you look at the overall alumni demographic in our region, I mean, it's not necessarily comprised mostly of a lot of retired engineers, but those who actually have elected to participate in alumni events are typically of a generation where, you know, basically just getting some email is about the best, most effective means for us. So we've been using we established a Gmail account that we use primarily for pushing information out. And then frankly, I just use my personal email for people that want to reach out to me, then have questions, you know, about as president for the chapter, they have questions for me. I mean, I think if we were to do that at maybe a large city, that might be asking for like, you know, a real problem. But in this area, it's really not that big a deal. So we're kind of old school, just email. Mm-hmm.
We're mostly email as well. We have a Google group. Basically, you express an interest in the chapter, your email gets added to the list, and the officers can blast emails out to the whole group. And that's worked pretty well for 2-way communication. And then the officers just recently, within the past maybe year or so, set up a Slack channel so we can talk faster back and forth just between the officer corps. And that's worked really well. I'll admit that I'm not savvy at Slack or those sorts of chat agents, so I relied on another officer to set that up and run it. But yeah, I think that's worked pretty well for us. We also have a LinkedIn page, and we have static Gmail addresses for all the corps officers, president, vice president, secretary, treasurer, that get handed off as those officer positions change. So the contact information doesn't change for the chapter, which I think has been super helpful.
So like Rob, for our officers, we use Slack, and we try to get our members to use that, but not so much. It's not very popular with them. So we use Gmail as well. We actually have a tbp.org address that we use. So that's what we send the email from. And then what we do is, for the members who have sort of opted into our emails, they get just a label. And so we can very easily just send an email to that label, and it gets everybody on the distribution list. So that's what we do. We also have a LinkedIn group. We have an Instagram page. We have Facebook, but I think most of our engagement comes through email.
Maybe I should have mentioned prior, or for earlier on, or for earlier question, that I'm also involved and technically president this year of the New York City Alumni Chapter. So we're from a large, it's a very large base that we have to touch. We primarily rely on MailChimp, but I think, as Kurt alluded to, sometimes it gets lost in people's inbox, and it's hard to touch so many people. It's nice to get a core group of people that can attend your events and build from that foundation, which I think a lot of you guys have highlighted.
right? So Tricia gives me my update. I maintain an Excel, essentially an Excel database, if you want to think of it. And every time she gives me a set of alumni, I just add it as another worksheet to the overall Excel document. I take the emails off that distribution list and I add it to a master list. And then on that master list, I kind of indicate, you know, when did they come into the area? When it's particular events, I will sometimes just send it out to those who have paid and are active members, right? But at least twice a year for the initiations, I make sure that it's open to everybody, because we want to get as maximum participation at those, so that students that are joining for the first time, they feel welcome, they feel part of something that's bigger than just another student organization, but is actually bigger than the university itself. And so that has been one of our primary recruitment events. And then maybe I should throw on there too, and this was probably our other major successful event this year, is that we had a reception for our distinguished alumni recipient, right? And so we would have that reception, whether they were nominated and didn't get selected, or whether they were selected, it doesn't matter. We highlight them in the area, and somehow other alumni like to come out of the woodwork when they see another alumni is somehow being awarded for something they feel, maybe this filial connection, I don't know, right? But that actually becomes then a recruitment event in itself as well. So those are probably summarizes the way we handle recruitment.
Yeah, we're really similar. We rely pretty heavily on the list that comes out from Tricia. I basically have a canned letter that I send out. I get that list, put in all the emails, and I send this introductory letter that goes, hey, welcome to the area. Hopefully everything's going well. We're here. And I hear back from a few people every time. Somehow Tricia's emails always garner an order of magnitude more responses when she sends them. We're working on that. But we also created a liaison officer position. There's 6 student chapters within the geographic area that our chapter covers. And I haven't seen all 6 of those positions filled simultaneously, but I've seen over the course of my time with the Front Range chapter, someone in each one of those positions at some point in time. And they're basically the go-between from the alumni chapter and the student chapter. And so they've been really great in spreading the word to those student chapters that says, hey, we're here in the Denver area, but no matter where you end up after graduation, there's probably an alumni chapter around. Reach out. I can be your resource for more information. And this has gotten students and student chapters to attend some of our events in the past. And so that's been really cool.
So we also rely on the list that Tricia sends us, and we send out email, welcome email, and then I try and list the upcoming events and a couple of the events we just had, so they get a feel for what we're about. And yeah, we get 1, 2, 3 people from that kind of joining the email list. And then I'm also a district director, so I have a chance to interact with the chapters often. So yeah, they all know that I'm with the alumni chapter, and so I try and mention it whenever I interact with them as well. So we get a few graduates from that as well.
And mention also that at our at the student initiations, we always make it a point to put a plug in for the for joining alumni after graduation. And again, it helps to have alumni there to kind of like say, yeah, this is something you can be involved in. And it would seem like the most obvious way to support that also is to have faculty from the different departments say, yeah, you know, I'm faculty advisor, but I'm also alumni. And, you know, so you can stay engaged lots of different ways. So I think there just needs to be some awareness to capture that younger group that are going to become alumni within, you know, in some cases months, right?
Yeah, I appreciate all your points. To that last point, though, it's nice to have a core group of people who are, you know, esteemed, right? Like the dean or faculty that can say, hey, this is what Tau Beta Pi has done for me. this is why you should join at the alumni level, and that's your brand, right? That becomes part of your brand. And then
I think at least half of the responses we get when I email new people who just moved from the area are from recent grads who were student chapter officers and are interested in staying involved. And that's a really valuable energy to bring to the group. It's worth paying attention to those people.
So one of I think the things that are most fun for, I don't know if it maybe garners the most alumni participation, but it's certainly probably the most fun I have at an alumni event is when we have a back to school social of some sort with the student. Now, I say student chapter. We have in our area, we have 2 student chapters. So they happen more or less simultaneously. And we've got a board, we have like a board of directors. So there's a director in each region. So we always have at least one alumni who can kind of spearhead that event at that student chapter. And so we have, we started by doing an ice cream social, and we're like, hey, I will see you out there at the event outside in Oklahoma in August. And that ice cream was milk before you knew it, right? So we're like, we're going to be just inside the building, right? And then what was amazing from that lesson learned there was that the number of students that were walking by then, we ended up kind of being more in the thoroughfare of the students right around the time of day when all the faculty are kind of closing up their shops and students are finishing up their classes. And so we had a lot of students that started coming by that are not Tau Beta Pi. In some cases, they're freshmen. They're just getting started in their career. And so it actually became a way where the alumni got together. It promoted the campus presence for the student chapter. And in some cases, they're reaching out 2-3 years in advance saying, hey, we're going to be here in a couple of years. This is something you can strive to be a part of this, right? And so that's coming up again this fall. And this will be like one of the first times in the last couple of years when I think there'll be a lot more possible in-person participation. So I'm looking forward to that event this particular fall.
I'm just pulling up an email that I'm literally minutes away from sending out to my chapter. Basically, we've been trying to shoot for about one thing a month, which has been pretty much doable throughout the course of the pandemic. And what we kind of decided with we just had a transition for officers, and we met, and we're kind of 50-50 piggybacking on community events around the greater Denver area. And so we'll pick a community event that looks really cool for all of us. For example, the first Friday art walks in the art district in Denver, first Friday of every month, all throughout the year, they do art walks. Well, the first Friday in September, we're going to get together as a group of alumni and go to the art walk. And it's an option, it's free. Come and hang out with alumni. We'll also invite all the student chapters to this. There's a trivia night. We're going to tour a brewery. And it's just kind of, we found it beneficial to pick things ahead of time so people can get it on their calendars, send out reminders, they'll see it. It's kind of more visibility. But yeah, I'm really excited to see how this works out. This is an idea that stemmed from the latest officer meeting.
So similarly, we do one event a month, so we're committed to that. So the officers get together first Monday of the month, and then we go over the event, kind of do a little retrospective on the event we had, and then pick the event for this month if we haven't picked it already. And then what we do is to lessen the burden on everybody. We rotate who writes the copy for the email and all the marketing that we do, kind of. So that kind of rotates. So somebody will just write up, hey, join us for this event. And then different people different officers will post that on LinkedIn and Facebook and Instagram, and I'll send out the email or whatever. Anyway, so our upcoming events. So we have in September, there's an event in Milwaukee called Open Door Milwaukee, and it's where historic buildings and some other just big buildings and whatnot open their doors for free, give tours for free to the public. And so we're hoping to get some people together, alumni and students, because we have in the Milwaukee area, there are 3 chapters within a few miles of each other. So that's an event we're hoping to get students at. We haven't been that successful in the past, but we'll see how this goes. It's an interesting event, so we're hoping to get some people to come to that.
So the first $50 out of those dues goes to cover what we need to pay for national, so that Tricia doesn't get on our case. And then after that, what we tell the alumni is, hey, look, if you pay 20, you're entitled to come to any of the student initiations. I say the student hosted, right? Because we can have alumni initiated at those as well. But you know, usually at their initiations, there's some sort of banquet that follows. And we say, look, you know, attend the initiation and just, you know, go ahead and eat. And we will, you know, provide at the end of the year, provide that student chapter with a, hey, here's a check from the alumni chapter that, you know, cover, you know, whatever food we were eating, but usually a little bit more than that, so they can use that to support their events. And so, yeah, so mostly for food, we help them with Pie Day advertising. So like if they want to like say, hey, we'd like to hand out oatmeal cream pies to everybody and have the Tau Beta Pi logo on that thing, right? And we might say, well, it's in the middle of the day, so they're not gonna be a lot of alumni are working, but we'll cover the cost of the oatmeal cream pies. In fact, we'll bring them. We'll just bring the oatmeal cream pies. And so something like that, you know, that's where we're using the dues, and the members know that. I think it's important for them to realize, you know, what those $20 are going for. And a lot of them will say, look, I'm not going to mail them to you. I'm just going to show up at that initiation and I'll put $20 into the hopper there, and we'll just say we're good for the year. And so the trick is just making sure that we keep track of who is paid. And then that also, by the way, last thing, that entitles them also to be able to vote, right? So I mean, there's everything from the ratification, you know, the annual ratification, or alumni officers, that sort of a thing. So okay, I talked more than I expected. Sorry about that. Yeah.
All right, we charge $10 a year. And again, that goes first and foremost to HQ. And then we use the remaining money to do things like pay for the prize for trivia night. We also try to make it a point to subsidize travel for a delegate to go to convention. And that tends to take the majority of the rest of our income, but we think it's really important for at least one person to go. And as we're able, we help out with student chapters. You know, student chapter wants to host an event and they say, hey, we're trying to raise money for this. We'll kind of get together and go, all right, we can help you out and get that going. But we kept it at $10 for a number of years now. Hasn't come up to increase it, haven't needed to, but interesting to see that Kurt, you guys are charging 20. That's a good reference point.
We also charge $20, and of course we pay our alumni chapter fees with that. After that, we're excellent stewards of our money because we don't spend it on anything. I mean, we used to have an alumni meeting in January in person, and we would buy some dinner to have at that, but we've been doing that virtually. And then we just, honestly, we just don't have our act together to figure out what to spend it on, but I absolutely love the idea of attending some of the initiations and then helping out with food. So if we generally don't get alumni attending those in great numbers. So, you know, maybe that would be something we could use to advertise that as well and get some alumni there. I love that idea.
You talked about the 4 things that make the cycle, right? And I would say the answer to that one is down there where there's the leadership, right? So there's got to be somebody who, first off, an individual who wants to spearhead that. And I remember that when we started our Pikes Peak alumni chapter, there was, I won't say any names, but there was a particular individual who had a very like upfront personality and like wouldn't take no for an answer, and you know, really kind of got people out, you know, out of their chairs. And so I think it takes a certain individual to at least get the ball rolling. And then I think as people become aware of what it can be, right? And it might be that that chapter may have kind of faded away during a time, maybe pre-pandemic even, you know, something like that. And then since pandemic, with all the new online, you know, resources for connecting, you know, Teams, Zoom, whatever, you know, Google Meets, that maybe it's time to rethink about resurrecting that chapter, but it's still going to take probably that individual who's got that kind of impetus.
In my experience with this, it takes Tricia and one person with an inability to say no. And that tends to fix alumni chapters. But I think Kurt's absolutely right. It takes that one person to just get the ball rolling. And honestly, it takes just 2 or 3 more before you're at that critical mass where you can keep things going. And maybe it's that core group of just a few people that show up for everything, but you'll get 1 or 2, 3 other people that'll start rotating in and start showing up for more and more events. And once you get to that level, you're resurrected, you're back.
Yeah, so similarly, the Milwaukee area alumni chapter was actually resurrected in 2017, and Tricia found some officers from a collegiate chapter who were willing to step up. So they were already used to the leadership role, and they wanted to continue with it. So I agree with Kurt and Rob. You got to find somebody who's willing to take on that leadership. And then, you know, once they start communicating, you know, people will start following. So, yeah, so that's how we did it.